Hello, good morning, GDQ. My name is GaussMkII. I'm going to be your runner. We have a few familiar faces on the couch. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves real quick.
Go for it.
Are you sure? Okay. Hello, friends and fellow gamers. My name is TempestMask1000. I ran Castlevania Legends. Some of you know me as Steve, by the way. Hi.
My name is Gordon.
And I spread misinformation. I'm Stelmo. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, these are still facts.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Ran Project 06.
So we are going to be running a new game. We will not be using circuit mode on the normal difficulty, and we will not be doing any additional modifiers. That can maybe be anything for next year. But anyways, let's just get right into the run. My couch will kind of just get the intro started from there. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Woo!
All right, beginning the stage right here. Ordinarily, we would have a little bit of a cutscene playing first, but we're actually going to be doing this run on speedrun mode, something added to the game straight from the developer that makes grinding attempts or just marathon runs a little bit nicer. It disables most of the game's cutscenes, auto-advances through text straight to the end, and has a few other kind of quality of life changes just to make things a little bit nicer.
So Gravity Circuit is a game that you have maybe seen a lot of times before. It's very much inspired, especially by the Mega Man X and the Mega Man Zero series. Our titular hero here, the Gravity Circuit, his name is Kai, and he's got basically mostly melee attacks is kind of his strong suit, as well as he has the ability to use a hook shot, which you can use to grapple on the ceilings, as well as do a little bit of range damage to enemies as well. We are going to be seeing two different types of abilities that he'll have, passive abilities and active abilities. The active abilities are called Burst, which we'll be gaining more of throughout the game here, and they're kind of activated like smash commands. Nice thing speedrun mode does is normally you gain your first burst ability, Flying Strike, about a third of the way into the intro stage. We actually have it right from the beginning, which allows us to do things just a little bit quicker as we come up to the intro boss.
So this is the Wrecker Tank, and unlike most bosses that we'll be seeing later through the game, this one's going to be treated more like a mini-boss, which, like with normal enemies, does not have any kind of iframes. So here's our way of dealing with that. We call this wiggle strats, and how we do so is we turn on the rapid fire option and then try to wiggle left and right to deal as much damage to shred that health, and it just goes down no problem.
Yeah, all the mini-bosses, well, I guess the Wrecker Tank's technically the intro stage boss, but other mini-bosses that we're going to be seeing throughout the run here, they do not have iframes, like Tempest said. So we're able to take advantage of that, and we'll actually be using another burst technique to take care of the rest of them.
Loading into the Guardian HQ here in just a second, after we get through the results screen. Now, normally we would get an intro on how our passive abilities, the booster chips, work, but since we're in speedrun mode, we can just run straight on through and get into our first stage. We're free to tackle these levels in any order we want, but usually runners start with Steelworks. It gives us a very, very useful burst technique, which we'll see a little bit later, and it just so happens to have enough rescues to get the booster chips that we want.
Yeah, with the rescue system, there are hostages throughout the game, and unlike Mega Man X, 5, and 6, they actually serve a grander purpose of being able to get us these passive upgrades from the nurse robot. And so we'll definitely want a few in order to augment Kai's overall abilities. And then as for burst techniques, which we will be able to buy from our doppelganger, well, let's just say those will really even out the score or something like that. I don't know. It's almost 8 a.m. in the morning.
You have clearly not woken up yet.
We're seeing our first rescue right here. There are 64 of these, 8 in each stage, and we're going to be picking up a grand total of 7 because we're the hero of this story. Don't worry, just like in Mega Man games, when you defeat the boss, the entire area calms down, so they'll be watching the spectator mode.
And to anybody playing at home, don't worry, you can always return to these stages no problem. The game will always track your progress very, very conveniently.
Let's see, we're going to have a pretty difficult skip coming up in just a second. Let's see if Gus can hit it. No, not quite here, never mind. Sorry, stage runs together. I'm a fraud, what can I say?
He's a fraud.
I'm a fraud.
Maybe you spread the misinformation.
It could be. Maybe we swapped roles now.
Passing by those checkpoints there, a very nice thing about checkpoints in this game is you can expend a little bit of money. You can see in the bottom right, that is our bit count. In addition to needing the rescues to get our passive abilities, we also need bits, but here we go.
Trying that once, but we will not be. We'll just take the normal way.
So normally what you do is you use the grapple hook to swing through these spikes and attach to the next moving platform up top. Very difficult stuff, and Gauss actually found a really nice setup for it right before the run started, but very good attempt regardless, as we now use a dive kick. The dive kick is something we haven't talked about quite yet. It's a really cool part of Kai's moveset here, if you've maybe played Shovel Knight or I think DuckTales. I think, wasn't that earlier in the marathon? I'm not entirely sure. But
I don't. Oh, no, actually.
Oh, well, if you played DuckTales or Shovel Knights, the dive kick kind of pogos you, and it also works as a pseudo double jump with its wind-up animation. But here we are in our first boss, Ray.
So we teased this a little bit earlier by saying the record tank didn't have iframes. Gravity circuit bosses are kind of complex, but the main thing we need to know is that if you hit them too many times in a short period, they'll go invincible, and also they will force invincibility at half health to do a desperation move. Just like this, every desperation move is different for each boss, but the iframe mechanics largely work the same. To counteract the build-up of them, we can use a burst technique like Flying Strike to send them into tumble.
Got it.
Very nice,
Very
and
nice.
a perfect.
So for those that do not know, like within fighting games, you can beat a boss without taking a bit of damage, and in doing so, the game will reward you 2,000 bits, and it is a really nice little thing to get us a little up there in our wallet.
There's only one particular boss where we are going to intentionally take damage. Other than that, that's the only perfect we need in terms of our money routing for all the purchases we're going to do. So any further perfects that Gauss gets, I will be matching and donating $10 for each one, and I encourage anybody else, as well as in the chat, if you guys can, to donate as well for every perfect in the run.
I'll be doing the same, so.
Nice, let's go.
Just by a few burst techniques here, we're going to get Function Overload and Rising Upper. Rising Upper is going to be very, very helpful for fighting bosses. It allows us to combo with Flying Strike to really just shred their HP. Means we have to do fewer punches. We also bought the booster chip Catch Block, which gives us immunity to knockback. The screen will still freeze for a little bit while the timer keeps going, so it is still slow, but for a speedrun, it just lets us damage boost much more effectively and disable several stage gimmicks.
And since we have our friend Argic in the audience, if he could do the Animaniacs reference with me. Hello, nurse.
All I see is electricity.
Sparking. Anyway, welcome to the power plant. So this is the other level that I actually forgot to mention was also included within the Gravity Circuit demo, which us runners actually started the sort of routing through. One of the major differences between the full game and that was you did have a lot of burst techniques and booster chips already given to you as part of the whole lore of, hey, we are going to give you this stuff, try to be on the lookout for it and see what you can experiment with. So in this case, though, we are going to start using Function Overload, and assuming we haven't talked about its buffs, we have a double jump. Whenever it's active, our overall movement speed increases a lot, and also our attack speed as well. The main drawback, however, is that our damage taken increases quite a bit. So Gauss will want to try and be as careful as possible not to take an accidental death as a result of it.
Now, you may notice that he's actually canceling the burst animation a fair bit when using Function Overload. We call those dumb cancels. Well, I say we, that's apparently their official name as well. If you activate a slide and certain bursts at the exact same time, then you just get to cancel that little startup animation, which is pretty useful.
That's why it's important to set Function Overload to the down burst.
Yes. Now, fun fact about this move, speaking of the demos, and the very old ones, Function Overload actually just doubled the damage that you dealt. And then throughout testing, we realized, hey, that's kind of lame. What if we made it just like the most cracked movement option of all time?
Yeah, Gordon only commentates games he beta tests, unfortunately.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that Gordon here is actually a playtester of this game, having been brought on by the developer themselves, Domesticated Ant. So shout out to Dominic and Auntie. And of course, with that in mind, we are now moving on to our next boss. This is Cable. Now, Cable here, if you've played the game without speedrun mode on, you'll see a cutscene before the record tank, which Kai learns that his fellow circuits from Guardian Core are now turned into the Rebel circuits by the Virus Army, and Cable is the first instance of such. So we've got a bit of a personal streak against him for it. He's going to try and use electricity attacks, which I forgot to mention that the electricity moves will charge those platforms on the bottom, and then his laser array for his burst technique is pretty easily dodgeable once you know what to do.
You're free from $10 this time.
So close.
We're at what, 1 perfect so far?
Unperfect.
All right, well, there's plenty more to go.
One thing you may notice in these boss fights as Gauss uses Rising Upper, normally the move deals 4 consecutive hits, but Gravity Circuit lets you cancel basically anything. So Gauss will be doing like 3 hits, then immediately canceling it. I think you go into the punch, then comboing with Flying Strike.
Yeah, so at this point, it's probably well worth mentioning that when starting off with the run, the community came up with a lot of their own routes at first when we didn't really have much of an idea on what to do. In fact, some people didn't really think to use function overload at first. We were a little on the fence as to whether or not the reliability of such was all worth and whatnot, but at this point, it's definitely something that just has to be done because, you know, if you want a top time, any kind of buff to your speed really will help.
I think I'm the last holdout on using function overload. I just hate it, man.
I don't blame you. And,
All right,
yeah.
so that purchase we just did, we picked up Energy Multiplier and Current Arc. Current Arc we're going to be seeing, well, sort of, against the mini-bosses. And Energy Multiplier just increases the amount of burst energy we gain from sources. We haven't talked about the mechanic a lot yet, but as we begin Highway here, which is kind of a reference, I believe, to Mega Man 02, where you just jump up on a bunch of trucks on a highway, is that if you look in the top left, you will see Kai's health bar. Underneath that, we'll see a percentage value and the EN. EN stands for energy, and to the right of it, there are little green pips. Those are our amount of times we can use bursts. Every burst uses up 1 energy pip, so every time we use one of our active abilities like Function Overload right there, we're going to use it, and we're actually going to get 1 extra energy pip from that energy upgrade. We also picked up an energy upgrade in Power Plant, our previous stage as well. The passive ability that you begin the game with, called Energy Absorber, allows you to, in addition to gaining burst energy from refilling at checkpoints or grabbing like the orange spheres that pop out of enemies and bosses and stuff, you can also fill it up just by doing damage to enemies via that ability, which is really nice.
Also, I stand corrected. Mega Man 04, we start off on trucks, but in 02, we start on trains.
First mini-boss coming in here. This is where we're really going to see Current Arc put to good use. It deals, I'm not sure how many projectiles it fires out. It's like 8 or 16. So normally not very good against bosses. It's also kind of got a shotgun spread. But against mini-bosses where you can just get inside their model and then activate it with no iframes on them, it absolutely shreds.
These sleds are also very interesting in that we get to maintain our speed on top of them, and we can actually carry it further, which we're going to be seeing, I believe, on our next sled, not this one. We're going to be carrying it like across a third of the stage, and it's super cool looking because the dive kick does not cancel out our speed, and like I said, we can use it to pogo off of enemy boxes, enemies themselves, and a couple other things as well. Rising Upper can also maintain our speed a little bit too.
Yeah. The only thing that will kill it is either landing on the ground or using a double jump. Not a dive kick, a proper double jump like from Function Overload or the chip.
I'm actually just going to reload from checkpoint really quick.
Not bad.
I want to show off the trick if nothing else.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Definitely saves time, even still.
Let's see if you can land this. This is a pretty cool but pretty complicated movement.
The function overload actually made it too fast.
Dang.
That's okay, we still got to see a little bit of it there. Very cool stuff.
The
Again,
momentum launch with the hoverboard was basically the main ingredient to the trick. Nothing to it else.
Refilling our health here because it's boss time.
This is Bit, not to be confused with our currency system, and he's going to show us his moves. He's a bit of a speedster, and so we'll just have to try and do the same kind of boss stuff. You'll notice, by the way, that unlike most boss arenas, this does not have walls. And on top of that, too, we have the electrical field, which serves as hazard terrain. So if we touch that, we're going to be teleported back.
Oh.
No.
If the boss touches the hazard, they will not sustain damage, but they will blink out of existence. So just loses a little bit of time, but very nice kill.
Apparently, he's built different.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
One thing we haven't gotten to mention quite yet is that one thing we're not going to be seeing in this run is armor paints. So it was added in a later patch post-release, but in each of the 8 stages, you can pick up a chip, and then there's a painter in the Guardian Core that'll allow you to change Kai's paints, and in doing so, gives him a different passive ability. However, his original paint that you just start the game with actually has its own ability of giving you increased burst energy. So it's actually very important, especially in normal mode, because this used to be the only armor paint, so a lot of the challenge of the game was actually designed around it.
Picking up, I believe, our last burst here. We got Gravity Dash, which will be not exactly the main form of movement, but a nice auxiliary one. Grants Kai some very nice vertical mobility. And Heavenly Pile Driver, which we're not going to see for a little bit.
You're also seeing Gauss set up a second loadout. This was something that was not within the original game, nor the ability to change it on the fly. But of course, with the developer wanting to add a bit more via the positive feedback and what the community wanted to see from it, this definitely helps us just a little bit, to the point that by a press of the button, Gauss will be able to not have to do some quick menuing just to switch out to the gravity dash technique, and we'll be pretty much good to go.
Entering Junkyard here, our 4th stage, we are going to be grabbing a health upgrade just for a little bit of safety, and seeing something that we haven't talked about quite yet, even though we picked it up very early in the run, Catch Block. So Catch Block was our first passive we got, and it's probably the most important passive in the entire game, is it basically negates knockback and nullifies hazards. So normally in this stage, there are going to be these spouts up top that are going to drop this goo. If you don't have Catch Block, Junkyard becomes one of the most difficult stages in the game, as the goo will just catch Kai, and then you have to kind of wiggle out of it with the control stick, but Catch Block just says nuts to that, and you can just continue moving along very nicely.
Yeah, take it from me, I'm a minimalist runner.
Additionally, Function Overload, I don't believe we mentioned it just yet. It not automatically destroys, but it can one-hit stage obstacles. So like these boxes or these things that are falling from the ceiling here can do that. But it's mini-boss time once again.
And this will be the last mini-boss within the game, too. I know some people may be wanting the developers to add in just a bit more, but we think this is more than a healthy amount.
Very nice.
It's nice.
Good setup with Current Arc there. He has a pretty small hitbox on his head, so it can be a little bit hard to aim that, especially when you don't have one of the other chips. We're not going to be seeing Chain Dasher.
Yeah, a little unfortunate, but hey, it's there's a lot within this game that you can experiment with, and we highly recommend it. It is available on all PC platforms. You can also get it on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 and 5, and physical.
Very nice.
Physical editions are readily available.
And it's 30% off for the summer sale right now, I believe.
Yeah, I think I'll have to double check, but not now, of course, because we are about to get into Trace. She is a junk manipulating robot, and I think I'll let Gordon take this one over.
Yeah, this can be one of the more annoying boss fights. Trace can spawn the goo, which, if you don't have Catch Block, is just miserable. She will throw a ton of projectiles around, and in phase 2, she will start summoning enemies, which can get in the way of your combos. Now, when you defeat an enemy, like just deal enough damage, their corpse will get launched, and you can pick it up and throw it with the hook shot that actually applies to most things in this game, including the projectiles that Trace throws, but thankfully none of that happens here. Very nice kill.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Pick it up, pick it up.
Pick it up,
Get
pick
it
it up, pick it up.
Go.
Get it.
No.
Every time, a lot of enemies, bosses do this 100% of the time, as well as the mini bosses. They drop that chip over there. You can get one for every enemy in the game, and it provides just a little bit of information. It's part of 100%, so Gauss just teasing us there with the better category, of course.
If you want to go into some donations for a little bit as we just go into the next stage.
Absolutely. We have $200 that came in from Domesticated Ant.
Let's go!
Developers of Gravity Circuit here. So cool to see our game being run at SGDQ. Thank you, Gauss, for putting on a show for us. Let this donation go towards Runner's Choice.
For everyone else watching, that is whatever adds more time to GDQ.
I believe that is the bonus Pizza Elemental boss fight, which
All right.
we are still getting donations in for. We have $25 from Ninja Man that says, have to see what a Pizza Elemental looks like. And yeah, please get your donations in to tell us what you think a Pizza Elemental might look like.
So here we are in City Center. This is Medley's stage, and it's a very vertical focused stage. We got some springs that if we stand on them for too long are gonna bounce us upward. We've also got these little speakers that, depending on color, will activate at a different time. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, well, I guess one thing we haven't mentioned is the Gravity Dash. So the Gravity Dash, if you played any 2D Metroid game, kind of works a little bit like a Shine Spark. When it's activated, we can launch Kai in one of 8 directions, on the compass, and it's just a really good move. Unfortunately, in normal mode, we're not able to use it nearly as much because in circuit mode, this is basically Gravity Dash the stage, but we will be seeing it used just a little bit here as well. But one thing I did also want to mention, since we're in the music theme stage, is the soundtrack to this game. Dominic Ninmark?
Yeah, Dominic Ninmark.
Dominic Ninmark is an incredible composer. I know a couple people probably know a lot of his stuff from Mega Man X Corrupted, the fan game that we're sorely waiting for.
JKB Games, please take your time, but please give us a demo eventually. We're counting on you, man.
But he did the music for this game too, and it's fantastic. Even if you don't pick up the game yourself, it is I'd almost say it's a duty to listen to the soundtrack. Dominic uploaded all the tracks tracks of this game himself. Even just the stage select theme is super good.
It's amazing, and there's been a lot of details put into this game as well that if you listen to the pre-level themes for each Rebel circuit, you'll notice that a little bit of their stage motif has also been thrown in there for a bit of variation as well. And to the boss theme too, Deletion Duel, which is one of my personal favorite jams of the entire soundtrack.
Grabbing our second and last health pickup there. 4 of the stages have health pickups, each one granting 4 additional HP, so by the end of it you can have a second health bar. The other 4 have energy upgrades for a grand total of 6. Now, ordinarily, to get the upgrades, it's not too hard to find the room that they're in, but there is some sort of puzzle attached to it. For this stage in particular, the puzzle is finding where it is.
There's no indication that you can go down that pit, and it is... it's a bit funny, but also a bit sad when you're looking for it for the first time.
I think there's like one cracked tile, maybe.
Something like that. But in Medley's stage here, so this kind of is like themed after a concert, and every time we hit Medley, the crowd actually boos. Boo! And then cheers when Kai takes damage. Kai, again, being our protagonist we're playing as. Here we go, desperation move.
Not my hero.
Not my hero. No more heroes?
No more heroes?
No more heroes?
There goes my hero.
Nice finish. Great
Watch
job.
her as she falls.
We could probably sneak in another donation or two.
Absolutely. Silver Volt Dragon sent in $25 to MSF. Just saying, morning, everyone. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we have $100 that came in from Kisaki, who just said, run!
That's what we're doing. Interestingly enough, when you do this, or when you start the game after downloading it, there is a run button. But thankfully, there's an option to set it to inverse. Well, Kai will run, and then when you press the button, he'll walk. So you can see his walking speed when he approaches the bosses.
Yeah, you can have it set to a couple of different things. You can have it set to while you're holding the button, or you can just tap it once and then you're constantly moving on that way.
Dog.
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 No dog.
So 2 of the rescues in this game are actually based off of domesticated ants, both their dogs. So maybe we'll get to see them at the end of the run, but for right now, I guess we'll just tease it a little bit.
A little bit.
I was told that there was supposed to be a third one that was to be added within the game, but I guess there just wasn't much time left if memory serves me right.
We
Yeah,
don't
I
talk
guess
about
we'll
that
see.
anymore.
Heading into Mountains here, Mountains is actually considered the most difficult stage, at least via the game standards. There's a lot of horizontal and a lot of vertical, and this stage also features the longest segment between checkpoints here, so Gauss is definitely going to have to be on top of his game, even though he's been crushing it already throughout the entire game so far.
Absolutely. Now, this stage, you can notice that there are these floating platforms.
Oh, very nice. A good time to talk about the mechanic of safe ground. So there's sort of soft recovery and hard recovery in this game. Whenever you take damage from something like spikes or fall into a pit, Kai will then be teleported to the closest safe terrain. So things like what we're standing and moving against right now is safe terrain, but elements like these fans or moving platforms are not considered safe terrain.
Yeah, one thing to also point out that I guess I forgot to do at the intro stages, you noticed, or rather Steelworks, that Gauss was able to pick up a health pickup simply by using Kai's hook shot. And it's also possible to do so by using the shockwave from his simple attacks as well. A really nice detail and a good touch of trying to get through the stage without necessarily needing to waste too much time to just backtrack for the good old important, I need a recovery system.
One other thing that makes this stage so hard is that a lot of attacks will actually freeze you, similar to the Goop in Junkyard. Once again, Catch Block comes in and just prevents that. It's such a good chip.
Seriously.
It's like the best one in the game behind Function Overload. It's so good.
Shoutouts to Super Armor.
Oh, nice. Man.
Oh, very
It
nice.
did make that so good.
There you go.
Yeah, the safety platform detection is a little bit forgiving.
You noticed, by the way, that there was seemingly a bit of an upper climb blocked by a couple of floating platforms. This is where the game can actually teach you can pull them down by using your hook shot if you point it upwards.
I believe that's a gimmick that's exclusive to this stage. I don't think it appears in the final stages
I
at all.
think it appears, it's not mandatory, but yeah.
Gotcha.
So welcome to Blade. This is a bit of a Cloudman reference from Mega Man 7, and the idea being, well, we have the pits on both sides,
nice.
and, well, Blade's going to be flying around and trying to throw ice-based attacks at us, including this freezing cycle tornado move. So Yeah, the whole point of him is you just want to try and hookshot your way up and try to get, or rather hope that he comes down to our level, and then so close.
Those iframes activating right there. And that's a cool thing that Tempest brings up is that Gravity Circuit is a game that wears its inspiration on its sleeves, but it does such a great job, instead of indulging in that nostalgia, improving it. Like, I would go to say I've played both the Mega Man X series and the Zero series, but Gravity Circuit, it's the best of the best. If you like those games, it's totally worth picking this up. Very good.
Yeah, I might just be a bit biased as a Mega Man fan, just a tad, you know?
This improves on the genre so much. The movement is so clean. It feels satisfying. The power-ups are reasonable. And all of them are fun.
And the story is actually really good.
Story is good too, yes.
I speak with no bias on it. I've played X1 and X7, the best the series has to offer, and X1.
I knew you were going to do that joke.
I mean, hey,
Gotta recycle humor.
I said at the end of my run I was going to learn X7. I wasn't kidding.
Here we go into Warehouse, which is not a terrible stage, but it features the boss that we love to hate, Hash. We might see him a little bit before the boss room, because if you take too much damage in this stage, he will appear and laugh at you just to really rub salt in the wound. But sort of, I guess necessarily the couple gimmicks that are featured in this stage are the switching blocks that are blue and red that will switch depending on which switch is active. We've also got disappearing, reappearing blocks, but in a little bit of a different way than in a Mega Man game. I'm trying to hit this with a hook shot here. Nice timing. And let's see, we also have a security system here. When we pass by these lasers, these security robots will appear. And they also, I found out, drop a data chip as well, despite being more of a hazard than an enemy.
Oh yeah, no. Some of the data chips get crazy. I think the base rate's 20 or 25%, but thankfully there is bad luck mitigation. Every time you kill an enemy without getting the chip, it just becomes a little more likely.
In the next section here, we are going to be going on 4 different pathways in order to open up these locks here. A nice little mechanic we're seeing is when you do something like collect a health upgrade, or you're going to see destroy these locks, it actually saves the moment that you do it. So what we can do is we can go into the menu and reload to the checkpoint so we don't have to go back to there. Unfortunately, when we reload from a checkpoint, we gain all of our health back, but not our energy. So that's why we did top right first, because that allowed Gauss to use function overload for that section.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit nicer. This game is timed using the in-game timer. You can see the level timer on the bottom left, and just above it is the full game timer. It doesn't track absolutely everything, but does track the pause menu, doesn't track reloading from checkpoint.
It's basically a mandatory thing, but it also means that you don't necessarily need to use Live Split in order to submit a valid speedrun, something which I know Gauss does.
Very nice. Yeah, switch section could be a little bit tough here. I think we could do 1 donation during this.
Absolutely. Pixeline sent in $50 with a simple comment. Gaming.
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 Gaming. We also had $250 come in from an anonymous that just says less than 3. Thank you so much for that generous donation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So this section, fun fact here, we're in a little bit of a vertical section, but when the patch that added armor paints first came out, the developer actually told me that this section came to him in a dream. So that's game dev for you.
And what a fever dream it is.
Shoutouts to Gravity Man.
I think he was saying he was really struggling to come up with that last one, and then middle of the night just woke up, ran over and programmed it.
And he liked it so much that he made an entire modifier to miss the game. Ooh, nice skip right there.
Yeah, at the beginning of the run, you may have seen the level modifiers. Those do all sorts of changes to the game. You can have completely different level layouts, new enemy and boss AI, and if you're a psychopath, you can flip the entire game vertically.
Yep. There's a funny little ending, too, you get if you complete the game on the flip setting.
Oh, yeah.
Hash time.
Oh, yeah. This guy, he's got multiple arms and multiple ways to make you scream in pain.
Every time.
We truly hate Hash. Blade and Hash are the hardest, but Hash is by far the most annoying. He doesn't have walls to his arena like Bit, but unlike that boss fight, they're not solid. So if you punch him out, he will just kind of warp out of existence like that and then have to teleport back in. His vulnerability periods are pretty low, and if you take damage, then he'll use one of them to very quickly laugh at you, then teleport away. The platforms make it a pain to navigate through. The fight is actually fine, but it it's nice to have something to
And to add insult to injury, he has, I believe, the longest desperation attack as well. So
Yeah, it's pretty lengthy.
I'm glad that he exists. I don't like him, but it's nice that there is one boss that even when you get, you know, top of the top level at this game can still give you trouble. That's what makes coming back to it so fun.
As I said, when Gordon ran this back on the bargain bin, there's always one.
Gotta have the antagonist.
The true antagonist is Ash.
That's my hero. I'm getting kicked off the couch.
Well, it's been fun, Gordon.
We got time for probably another donation for our next stage.
Absolutely. $25 came in from Shredderick saying, thanks for highlighting Gravity Circuit at this year's SGDQ. One of the most fun games with one of the most banging soundtracks I've played in recent time. Everyone who digs Mega Man likes or platformers in general owes it to themselves to check it out. We need to make that sequel happen.
The game's so good, even the donations are shilling for it too. It's just, Gravity Circuit is amazing. If you like platformers, you can't go wrong with this. Heading into our next stage, Ore Mines, which is actually the easiest stage according to the game. There's a few things. Function Overload trivializes a lot of the stuff. These crusher blocks we can destroy instantly. There's also these, again, disappearing blocks once again when we stand on them.
That's never happened before.
Final boss of the game shows up in Ore Mines.
Wait, did you just say that thing that I thought you just said?
I did say it. I was hoping I wouldn't have to.
Oh no,
Never happened before. Oh my. Right here on the stage, no less.
the forbidden words. That's another
Look,
one.
ride armor.
Yeah, another one of the stage gimmicks.
Ride what?
What?
Ride?
Ride? Armor?
Ride in some armor.
So in actuality, that thing is called the Powered Walker, if you could believe that. And they said, I believe Gordon told me the devs mentioned it took them an entire week to program into the game.
It was something like that. It took ages.
Legally distinct ride armor.
Yeah. It has its own health bar. It has its own attacks. Even has its own burst technique where it just explodes. And it can walk across spikes. However, Function Overload destroys all breakables in one hit and, you know, just lets you move through the stage. So we're going to abandon it to its fate.
Yeah, and this is one of those stages, too, where you can realize that hidden rescues can come in all different sorts of locations, including a little unsuspecting portion by the boss gate, which keep an eye out and see if you can guess for yourself.
I do like saying that Ride is the easiest rescue in the game is on screen.
Really? You don't think the one in Power Plant is just behind the breakable box?
Yeah, no, because this one's right in front of you.
Fair enough.
I'd say Yuki is, without a doubt, the easiest rescue, period.
True.
I think Yuki is the most pettable of
didn't say
the...
True. Very true. In this checkpoint, it's boss time.
Oh.
Oh. So that's a reference to the first thing that he says, Crash here, whenever you bring up his dialogue, and then we just skip it outright. But yeah, Crash here, he's got a bit of a drill system going on. I like to think of him as sort of an analog to Seismic from Mighty No. 9, which, sorry I have to bring up that game, but as a speedrunner, I don't know. That's just my modus operandi here. But yeah, you see him drilling into the ground and dropping all sorts of blocks, a la Mega Man
nice.
X.
Very good.
And yeah, his desperation moves brings down a lot of them. They're all destructible, but yeah, just try to move out of the way as fast as you can. He can be a bit of a nuisance with that stuff.
Yeah, the annoying thing with Crash is that, similar to Trace, who we fought in Junkyard, Crash can fly into his own blocks, and that will proc invincibility and just mess up your combos. Other than that, he's not too difficult. Without rude enemy AI.
True. Rude enemies not only affects just the regular enemies in the game, but it also gives the bosses new patterns too. I think the speedrun category for the modifiers is master levels with rude enemies, and I believe that's it. It's master and rude.
I'm not sure what we settled on. I know people were calling it DRM for a while. Right, heading into our final stage gauntlet here. After clearing the main 8 stages, Colonel, the guy who was sending us on these quests, has gone rogue. And now we have a final gauntlet of 3 to go through. These will mash up mechanics that we saw in all the other stages, including the best one.
Let's get it.
First
try!
That's first one.
One more to go.
Beautiful.
That's my goat! Let's go!
Beautiful. That was so good. That was so good. So as we enter the space colony, I mean just the Ark, sorry. Watch Sonic Project 06. Anyway, so entering the Ark here, we're going to be in more of a corridor, just like other Mega Man games. The Ark levels do and I think Gravity Circuit does it the best, is it integrates all of the different stage hazards we've seen. We've seen a bit of Ray's stuff in the steelworks, as well as the electricity from Power Plant as well, ironically enough, our first 2 stages that we ran through. And we're going to be seeing a little bit of fans later, as well as we're seeing more of these floating platforms as well.
Yeah, this is where we start to see the just everything come into play, and then some. It's not like throwing the entire kitchen sink, if you will, but I would say this is one of those things where instead of just throwing out the bosses for no reason, this is definitely a lot more balanced. Like, this feels natural. This feels like a nice way to progress everything that we've just seen, and it all comes to a fantastic climax.
Seen another gravity dash. 2 gravity dashes, my goodness. 3 gravity dashes. You're spoiling me there, Gauss.
It's okay, we got a checkpoint.
Yeah, we got a checkpoint, completely refilling those burst techniques once again.
And I think this would be a great time for some donations, so Spef, take us away.
Can do. We have $50. I apologize.
You're good. You're good. Too fast. I understand.
No, I was excited. You'll find it out. We have $50 from Eternal Red Gamer that says, hey guys, Red here.
Hey.
I'm extremely excited to see this game on the big stage at SGDQ, and I hope it gets into the hands of many more people, casuals and speedrunners. This is my favorite indie title in the last several years, and I hope to be there to run it or join the couch next time. My buddy Tempest can choose donation incentive choice.
Love you, Red. I'll have to get you back to you on that one, though, because we have now entered my favorite boss fight of the game. This is our doppelganger that I alluded to earlier. And yeah, we've already entered phase 3. You saw in phase 2, he started using booster chips, so you can probably assume what comes into this one. And also worth mentioning, he is a bit unique in that he has his own dodge roll, something which we don't. So whenever he presses that button, we cannot deal damage to him. It's a nice way of balancing the fight out, but it can also be very annoying on us runners, truly.
This boss was also our only intentional damage boost, because when he initiates the flying strike in phase 3, he will do 2 flying strikes, and then he'll do 3 rising uppers. But if you take the hit from the first flying strike, he cancels us out, and then you can combo him like all the other bosses.
Yeah.
Also, I decided, let's put that donation toward the pizza elemental.
Nice. Now heading into Arc 2, best music in the game.
One of the funnest stages for movement. It's so satisfying with everything that's happened, especially in the last few months.
Shout out to the trailer, by the way. You gotta watch this.
We put our heads up way too early. Here we go.
There it is. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster.
Here comes the drop.
Oh man, if you like just want an ounce of what the Gravity Circuit soundtrack is like, if you know our voices have been covering it up too much, listen to Arc 2. It's so good. I would almost consider it the theme of Kai, even though that's the opening theme. But I guess I make the decisions around here. See, almost able to save it with a second gravity dash. You actually have a little bit of leniency there. The kill plane is a little bit below when Kai goes off screen, so normally you're able to save it with a diagonal gravity dash, but doing a great job with the recovery there. And I mean, we get to hear Arc 2 some more, so I'm definitely not mad about that. About 50 seconds, well, I guess more about a minute 20 into the stage, we're going to be seeing one of the coolest skips in the game. Normally what you're supposed to do is you're going to go up and around the top path, but we're actually going to have just a little gap where we're able to do a gravity dash and completely bypass that and go to the other side.
Game, please. Go way back.
There we go. Keep it away.
There we go.
It's as they say, birds are jerks. So in this case, we got bats are jerks.
I thought birds weren't real.
I guess we have beat the bird, but unfortunately, he's not a shred of existence within this universe.
It's not a name or a command.
Seeing some more elements from Ray's stage here, and then heading into the skip.
Here we go.
Nice. Very good.
A little history on that. So apparently that has always been traversable. However, it wasn't until a bit of an update that now the camera moves along with it. So for anyone that attempts that in an earlier version of the game, you're basically going through the rest of the level blindfolded.
I think the camera will eventually correct, but just the movement you have to do is so rough. Speaking of rough, yeah, this is like the hardest part of the stage coming up here. It's just a very long, tight platforming gauntlet, and I believe Gauss is going to try to bypass the automation, which just makes it even more insane.
Something very similar to what he was trying to do in Steelworks with those moving platforms, though there's a little bit more open space here, so it's able to be traversed just a little bit easier. But Arc 2, it's definitely the stage with the longest separation between safe ground, so we have to be very careful here.
I'd say this is probably a good time for maybe 3 donations.
3 donations coming right up. We have $25 from Punit Claire, who says, "This is Kai, returning to base."
Love that line.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Daniel sent in $10 saying, "Good luck, Gauss, watching from Texas."
Thanks, Daniel.
And Tinctora and Omega sent in $25 to Doctors Without Borders saying, "Love supporting games that we learn about through this amazing event. Thank you to all the people that make this happen and to MSF for the great things they do, putting this towards extending GDQ."
Thanks to 2 of you, good friends of mine. All right, so now we are entering a boss that, while our Doppel was my favorite boss, this is my favorite boss theme. Let's hear that drop. Welcome to our boss rush.
So Gravity Circuit likes to do things a little bit differently, like we've talked about before, and innovates the boss rush into its own boss fight, really. So the Circuit Crystal here is going to send us into these refights where we only have 1 health, and the boss immediately starts with their desperation move. But you know what's cooler than desperation? Suplexing. So we use the Heavenly Pile Drive, and that cancels out our desperation move, and we can immediately go into phase 2 and defeat them here. Every time we defeat a boss in this, we're going to get some burst energy, which gives us those green pips back to use more burst techniques, as well as when it's marked which one we go to. We can use current arc because there's no invincibility frames on the Circuit Crystal. Getting suplex number 2, let's go.
A few of these you can just suplex off rip, but other ones we're going to have to work in a gravity dash first.
Yeah, so burst energy is very important, and it's actually what's also really important since we're on normal mode is the fact that we continue to use the default armor paint, because if we were to use the other ones, we wouldn't be able to refill our energy as easily.
We have talked about circuit mode a lot, so it's probably worth actually mentioning what it does.
Right.
No, I talked about it at the beginning.
So at the end of the game, that when you beat the game for the first time, you unlock New Game Plus in later versions speedrun mode, but also circuit mode. And when you select that for your playthrough, instead of having the energy upgrades, you only get 2 burst pips, and then any uses of burst techniques after those 2 are expended will come from your health. So all upgrades are health upgrades, unironically speaking. And more importantly, I mean, if you wish to speedrun this game, you don't necessarily have to consider this its own category. It's more of a sub-option, if you will.
Yeah, it doesn't significantly change the routing, but it does change how you have to approach the stages. A lot of runners will just opt for normal mode. Makes things a bit safer, more consistent.
I'm willing to try out circuit mode, though, just to make you happy, Gordon.
Thank you.
Another thing worth noting here, especially when you're playing this game casually, is that every time, at least on normal mode, when you defeat 2 bosses, you get a checkpoint. So if you were to collapse and run out of health and restart the checkpoint, you don't have to completely restart the boss fight, which is really nice.
One thing we'll also mention, too, is that once the boss is out of circuit simulations, once we warp out of that, there will be no more. The fight's just done. It's funny because, you know, first impressions had me thinking, yeah, there we go.
Good one.
I had to slow down a little bit there. That's the hardest suplex to do.
Yeah, if Ash wasn't already annoying enough, he also has the hardest one. But I don't think you know what, I'm not going to say anything until the fight's over.
Yeah.
No, say it. Speak your truth.
I'll speak my truth in about 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
No, not the timer.
All right.
Into Crash once again here.
Yeah. I guess it's also worth bringing up that you actually get to hear this boss another time in current versions of the game, boss theme, I should say. In that, in the post-game, we now have an arena mode which lets you fight all the different bosses again. And instead of deletion duel, this is playing the whole time. And I think that's a base choice for it, because again, I enjoy the heck out of this tune way too much.
All right, our final time fighting the circuit into our last circuit simulation against Bit. And that's 8 for 8 suplexes. Very nice.
Great job, Gauss.
You know what? I'll bring up my donation total to $80 just for that. That was awesome.
I will also just match you on that one, as I didn't get as many perks as I would have Normally.
Very nice. We still have the chance for a couple perfects, though, in the final stage.
That's not happening.
Well, regardless, we defeated our boss rush, and now we're into Arc 3, because there are only 3 Arc stages, as I learned recently. However, Arc 3 does have 4 segments that we're going to be going through. We kind of get a choose our own adventure thing here. And when we enter Arc 3, our doppelganger is going to take care of one path, and we will take care of the other path in the next section. And we're going to be going right, and then left, 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 all the way until the final boss.
Not to say that you don't have to adhere to those, it's just a little more optimal by our studies. Or
It's preference. Left and right are mostly similar, at least at the start.
Yeah, the first one, right, is very, very slightly faster if you nail it. But aside from that, left is pretty much optimal, especially in the last room.
so with that in mind, I think we've got some time for any announcements or donations. So Spef, take us away.
You got it. Some fuzzy guy donated $25 saying, Gauss, you are killing this, brother. I'm proud of you, so keep calm and schmooth.
Thanks, brother.
We also had $25 come in from Fiona with no comment, but thank you so much for your donation. And Show Steps donated $150 and says, keep up the great work, all. Thank you so much.
Very nice. It's extremely difficult to nail the right side, but Gauss, it's just an incredible display of skill here. He's practiced a whole heck of a lot, and it's very neat to see it all come together on the big stage here as we now go on the left path. Seeing a bit of a combination between Medley's gimmicks and Hash's gimmicks here. The portals from Warehouse and the spike boxes and enemies from City Center.
Yeah, this is a fun one. It's pretty easy to go through, but only if you keep moving. If you ever slow down, you are going to take so much damage.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where the game really hopes that at this point you've gotten used to platforming. Mistakes are still obviously going to happen from time to time, but you know, it's one of those things where, hey, if you've been practicing, this is a very, very rewarding feeling. Now, this stage admittedly also has some of the toughest bosses at this point. I mean, yeah, it's to be expected. It is the final stage, thus the final boss should prove to be a challenge. But I still remember Auntie telling me that, you know, he was once wondering if this was maybe a bit too unfair, but he decided to go with his gut. And frankfully, did I just come up with a new word for the dictionary? English is hard. No, frankly, I have to agree. It certainly made a very memorable impact. Of course, for a minimalist runner like myself, though, it also made my run for over 4 hours in RTA.
Here we go into the toughest part of the game, seeing a new gimmick, breakable spike blocks, and please do not take the right side of this path. Please do not take the right side of this path. It is so tough. And the left side, honestly, isn't much more forgiving as well. If you miss a punch or anything, since Kai is a melee-focused character, sometimes his hitbox just goes into his punch, and then you have that hard recovery because, of course, these are spike hazards. But Gauss, again, just showing just how amazing he is at this game. Using that catch block once again. Who knows how many times that's activated during this run.
Yeah, this is a crazy left side.
Very good.
All right, and with that, we are now making our way down to the underside of the arc. This is the final stretch of the game. Now, like I said, the bosses coming up are pretty tough. And I mean tough enough that if you die to any one of the phases, you gotta start from scratch. So, let's see how it all plays out.
This is a five-phase final boss. It's split between 2 bosses, but they just go in hand with each other. So we're going to be fighting that mind-controlled Colonel. Again, this was the guy that kind of gave us all the missions at the beginning. Turns out he's been mind-controlled since the very start, and we have not Sigma in the background to thank for that.
All right, so Colonel is going to be similar to our Doppel, using moves that basically take after ours. However, I'm also trying to remember what Auntie said about some of the direct inspirations to the movesets. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to not worry about that, because, you know, the burst shield there, we got to destroy that thing in order to keep doing the damage to him, and when we do, we get more burst energy ourselves. Colonel? Colonel? Colonel! Had to. Shout out to Metal Gear. All right, folks. Wrapping this up is Commander Circuit, and time will be on the final hit. The most boss health of the game at 3 bars. So we've gone through the first, and now it's all going to come down to that weak point, which you will start to shield, and we have to hit just a couple of times in order to get that thing open, at least for a few seconds. And we'll also have to start throwing enemies in it as well, because the hands will be going away right then and there.
Time is coming up soon.
And here we go. Let's just see how this all wraps up. I'm just gonna let it all fly.
Here we go.
Okay.
Get the corpse.
And
Pardon.
time.
First
Time!
Let's go, Gauss!
Very nice.
So time is, with in-game timer is how we record it. So we'll just see what we have here. Do we have any other final donations?
Spef?
Apologies. I was enthralled waiting for the final time. We had $100 coming from Rupinator with no comment, but thank you so much. And we also had $100 coming from Nathaniel that says, I'm curious and want to see that pizza elemental. Let's go. And we are over halfway to seeing that pizza elemental boss fight later today. So thank you so much for that donation.
We got plenty of time to do that too.
Not a PB, but it was still a really solid run overall. I'd like to give some shout outs to all my friends who watched this, to my amazing couch. Thank you guys for joining me for this adventure.
Thank you for having us.
Do you guys have any other final shout outs that you'd like to do as well?
No, I'm good. Play Gravity Circuit, please.
I got some. Shout out to our community, the Short Circuits Discord server, which if you'd like to run this game yourself, go ahead and head to our leaderboard on SRC. And yeah, we've got a very welcoming community filled with all sorts of walks of life, Sonic runners, Mega Man runners, people who haven't run either. We very much appreciate you all. Too many to name, but thank you all for doing your part to make this run extra awesome. Shout out to Domesticated Ant, and I'd also like to make a shout out to VTubers who have been interested in speedrunning, especially my friend Tatsuri, who donated during my run and unfortunately did not get the shout out. So love you, Tatsu.
So we didn't get to pet the dog in the last game, but just real quick here, we are going to pet the 2 goodest of the boys, Yuki and Amadeus.
Woo! Fun fact about this, so this mechanic to pet the dogs was actually added in order to get Gravity Circuit onto Can You Pet the Dog Twitter, which is pretty incredible, great way to advertise the game, but I believe that was Gravity Circuit.
Thank you guys again.
One more thing. We have a dog percent. That was my crowning achievement to the leaderboard. If you'd like to try and pick up a very fast speed run for this, give this a shot and see how you feel for the rest of the way. It is just that easy to get into. Thank you all for watching, though. Gauss, thank you for having us. And GDQ, we throw it
Have a
back
good one,
to you.
guys.